Hello and welcome back, everybody. This is the Space News by spaceindustrynews.com. My name is Will. Today we're going to be talking about the Mars InSight lander. This is a mission to Mars that will be studying the deep interior of the red planet. Now, if you'd like to support the podcast, you can find a link in the description. You can do it for as little as 99 cents a month and support it for as much as you want. That would be great. It can help me do more episodes, help me bring you more content, longer episodes, so your drive to work can be filled with space news and astronomy and cool stuff like that. So if you want to support it, I appreciate you. You listening to it is support enough for me. If you want to go above and beyond, there's a link in the description. So thank you so much for that. Now let's get into some InSight, some information about InSight and what the lander is going to do and what it's going to probe for. So NASA is launching the has launched the InSight lander, and it's a probe that's going to Mars. And NASA has been at it since 1965, where they've flown by, orbited, and landed and roved all across the surface of the red planet. None of it's been easy, and only about 40% of the missions ever sent to Mars by any space agency have been successful. And the planet's thin atmosphere makes landing a challenge, and its extreme temperature swings make it difficult to operate on the surface. But if a spacecraft survives the trip, there's a lot of science to be collected. So InSight will be landing on the 26th of November of this year, and it's the first mission to study the deep interior of Mars. This is going to be pretty cool. InSight stands for Interior Exploration Using Seismic Investigations, Geodesy, and Heat Transport. I love these. They have to come up with some really cool terminology to make these names for these landers. This is just cool. I like it. So InSight's going to take the vital signs of Mars, its pulse, which is a seismology, the temperature, which is the heat flow, and its reflexes, which is radio science, and it will be the first thorough checkup since the planet formed 4.5 billion years ago. And it'll also teach us about the interior planets like our own. The InSight's team hope that by studying the deep interior of Mars, we can learn how other rocky worlds, including Earth and the Moon, have formed. And our home planet and Mars were molded from the same primordial stuff more than 4.5 billion years ago, and then became quite different through time. Why didn't they share the same ending? We can live on Earth. You can't really live on Mars unless you're in a habitat of some sort. So they're going to be studying the interior of Mars, and maybe it'll be a peek back into history of what happened to the red planet and why it changed it up, why it's different than our Earth. And then from there, we could see maybe the future of Earth. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it'll open up a lot of new science that we can explore, because when you learn something new, there's always more questions to be asked. And that's what InSight is here for, answering a lot of questions that we've had for a very long time. Did you know that Mars has not earthquakes, but Marsquakes? And InSight will try to detect Marsquakes for the first time. And one key way that InSight will peer into the Martian interior is by studying the motion that's underground and what are known as Marsquakes. And NASA hasn't attempted to do this kind of science since the Viking missions. And both Viking landers had their seismometers on top of the spacecraft, where they produced noisy data. They couldn't really get everything that they needed. They couldn't really see everything they needed about Marsquakes and the shifting of the planet. InSight's seismometer will be placed directly on the Martian surface, and it'll provide much, much cleaner data. Scientists have seen a lot of evidence suggesting Mars having Mars quakes, but unlike quakes on Earth, which are mostly caused by tectonic plates moving around, Mars quakes would be caused by other types of tectonic activity, such as volcanism and cracks forming in the planet's crust. In addition, meteor impacts can create seismic waves, which InSight will also try to detect with its instruments. Each Mars quake would be like a flashbulb, poof, that illuminates the structure of the planet's interior. And by studying how seismic waves pass through the different layers of the planet, the crust, the mantle, and the core, scientists can deduce the depths of these layers and what they're made of. In this way, seismology is like taking an X-ray of the interior of Mars. They'll be seeing the inside of the red planet, see what it's made of. And scientists think it's likely they'll see between a dozen and 100 Mars quakes over the course of 2 Earth years. So anywhere between, 12 and 100 Mars quakes. The quakes are likely to be no bigger than a 6.0 on the Richter scale, which is pretty big. So, that's pretty healthy for a Mars quake. For an earthquake, that's pretty decent. So, it's 6.0 on the Richter scale, and it's plenty of energy to reveal the secrets of the interior of Mars. And how cool is this? InSight could teach us how Mars volcanoes were formed. And Mars is home to some impressive volcanic features, such as Tharsis, a plateau with some of the biggest volcanoes in the solar system. Heat escaping from deep within the planet drives the formation of these types of features, as well as many others on rocky planets. And InSight includes a self-hammering heat probe that will burrow up to 16 feet, which is 5 meters, into the Martian soil to measure the heat flow from the planet's interior for the first time. 16 feet on Mars, man. It's going to dig down 16 feet on another planet. That's crazy technology. That's amazing engineering. That's really cool. So it's going to measure the heat flow from the planet's interior for the first time, and combining the rate of heat flow with other InSight data, it will reveal how energy within the planet drives changes on the surface of Mars. So along for the ride is a CubeSat. Mars Cube, MARCO. It's the first CubeSat mission into deep space. So it's going to launch InSight to Mars, the same rocket. There's 2 mini spacecraft called Mars Cube 1, or MARCO. And they're about the size of a briefcase, CubeSats. And they'll fly on their own path to Mars behind InSight. So they're not going to get there at the same time. They're going to get there afterwards. And their goal is to test new miniaturized deep space communication equipment. And if the Marcos make it to Mars, they may relay back InSight data as it enters the Martian atmosphere and lands. This will be the first test of miniaturized CubeSat technology at another planet, which researchers hope can offer new capabilities for future missions. So if this is successful, Marcos could represent a new kind of communication capability to Earth. These things are the size of a briefcase. Size of like a backpack, basically. A little bit, maybe a duffel bag. And, they could communicate between Earth and Mars, and they will send signals from InSight to these little satellites, these mini satellites, and send them back to Earth so we can study information and study some data from InSight. They're not that big, and that's pretty awesome. And we don't need giant satellites to do some of this technology. Everything's miniaturized now. So hopefully they get there in one piece and they make it there, and we can get some data from them, and we can do some science. That would be amazing. I hope this pod gave you a little bit of a glimpse into what InSight is capable of doing and what these CubeSat tag-alongs are going to be doing as well. So I appreciate all your guys' support. If you want to support the podcast, there's a link in the description for Anchor.fm. And you can support us for as little as 99 cents a month and as much as, I believe, $10 a month. So all that stuff, super important to keep us going here. Appreciate your guys' time. I appreciate your guys' support. Enjoy your day. Have a beautiful night. Look up at the stars. Look for Mars, man. Look for it up in the sky. You'll see it. It's beautiful. It's a little dot. All right. Have a good day. Thanks so much. For the Space News by SpaceIndustryNews.com, this is Will signing off.